Chapter 15. The Family Home. As they rolled to a stop in front of Milo's family's shop, they all stepped down and sighed a breath of relief. The dozer seemed to sigh along with them, and Milo looked at his family's name over the shop with a smile. Dexter, however, immediately charged towards his family's hotel in search of his parents. Alice and Milo went into the store. Milo darted around to gather food and supplies, and stopped to grab a photo that hung in his bedroom that showed his parents. He then rejoined Alice near the counter. "It's really lovely in here," she said. "It was home," he replied. Milo took one last long look at the shelves filled with picture frames, clothing, and other various products. One last glance at the place where his father had taught him to run the family business. The very business that his father believed would be the redeeming grace for the family that would carry on into numerous generations. But now it was empty and filled with dust. "I'm going to miss it." He placed a hand on the curtains to close them, and flashes of memories he had made there came rushing like a river. For a moment, he thought he could see the ghostly pale image of his father standing at the top of the stairs. Without crying, Milo left his family home behind. They packed the things Milo had grabbed onto the tractor and sat on the bucket to wait for Dexter. Alice looked at Milo in a way she hadn't before. "I can't imagine losing what you and your family had here. It seems to me it would be worse than never having it in the first place." "Alice, don't do that. Don't talk like that. I didn't lose anything, not really. The life I had here is still part of my life. It didn't go anywhere. I'll just have to have different things now. It's going to be okay." Milo surprised himself with his words, but it was how he had grown to truly feel. He wasn't afraid of what was ahead. He just wanted to get there. He wasn't crushed by what he was leaving behind now. He was only glad that he'd been given the opportunity to have it in the first place. "I'm glad we've met each other," he finished as Dexter came running down from his doorstep. He slowed as he reached them and stopped to let his breath catch up with him. "They're not here, Milo. They're gone," he said. Milo felt his heart sink deep. He knew right away that if Mary and Jack were no longer at the hotel, then that most certainly meant that they had been in the room of sleepers back at Elite Industries. Dexter's parents were dead. "Dexter, I'm so sorry," Milo said as they both began to cry. "This is all my fault." Dexter looked to the sky and back at Milo before pulling him into a tight hug. He wiped the dirt and tears from his face and stepped back. "No, Milo. It's all right," said Dexter, and seeing Milo's confused expression, continued. "I gave it some thought in there, and I think Mom and Dad would have been glad that you and I got out of here. They would be happy that we're going to be leaving the city and living our lives. If we had stayed here, we would have just ended up like the rest of the people here. Elite would have gotten us too, and Eris Dayanir would have brought the entire hellhole to the whole world. You saved me. You saved all of us, really." Milo smiled at Dexter's words, but still somehow felt ashamed for what had happened. "Well, we saved each other. I wouldn't have made it without you there, like I said before, both of you," stammered Milo. Alice smiled and agreed. They shared a moment of silence before Dexter called them back to action. "Well, we're not out of this mess just yet. We still don't know how to get out of Crowhaven," he said as he climbed his way back into the seat of the bulldozer. Milo pondered it, as the rest of them did as well. He knew the city was surrounded by water, so they would need some form of transport to get over the sea. But none of them had any clue how to fly a plane, or a helicopter, nor where they might find one in the vastness of the entire city. But he did know where to find a boat. "I think I have an idea," he said. "Lead the way, Milo," said Dexter. "All right, Dex. Take us down to Mr. Andrews' house." Dexter smiled wide and started the engine. "I don't get it, guys. What's at Mr. Andrews' house?" asked Alice as they began to take off. But within a few minutes she understood and was helping the boys hook Mr. Andrews' sailboat to the hitch of Mr. Andrews' pickup truck. Dexter then proceeded to break his way into a window of the house and hunted down the keys for both. "I found them! I've actually found them!" he yelled as he came bursting out through the front door. "Perfect!" said Alice, nearly jumping with joy. "Now, one of us will have to drive the truck while Dexter handles the dozer. We'll head to the eastern edge and see if this thing can get us through the outer city walls." Milo spoke as if it were all going to be easy, but he knew the city walls would be immensely more difficult to make it through than anything they had passed before. "I've brought it this far. I'll get it to the other side," said Dexter, affectionately tapping the levers of the tractor. "All right, what do you think, Dex? Should we have come up with something different? I don't think we have any other choices to make, Milo." The ride across the city to the outer wall was painfully slow. The dozer could only move so fast, and the truck would have been capable of pulling away from it and leaving it far behind. The sounds of their engines echoed across the empty city streets. Everywhere they looked, they seemed a ghost of a city that had passed away. Several more of the district gates lay in their path, but the dozer took care of those as if they were made of sand. As the outer wall came into view, doubt began to seep its way back in. "I don't know if she can make it, Milo. She's been through a lot already, and that wall, it's strong," Dexter said. He wasn't wrong. The wall was built to shield Crowhaven from invaders from the outside world, and to keep its own citizens inside, where they belonged. It was quite simply a massive obstacle. "Like you said, Dexter, we don't really have any other choice to make," Milo called from the truck. "Are you sure you want to do it?" "Full speed ahead," said Dexter as he pulled away from Alice, Milo, and the pickup truck. Milo mashed the brakes and stayed behind, as Dexter gained speed and headed straight for the walls. With a violent crash, the dozer collided with the enormous concrete and came to a disrupting halt. The machine coughed and sputtered, but did not break through to the other side. Dexter had been nearly thrown from his seat and took a pretty good gnash to his left arm during the hit. He climbed back into his chair and turned to give the others a thumbs up. "Dexter, hang on!" Milo put the truck back into drive, and before he could do anything, Dexter had already tossed the vehicle into reverse and was readying himself for a second pass at the wall. "Dexter, don't do it!" Another frightening wreck rang out into the streets, and the dozer quit running. Dexter had again fallen from his spot and cracked his skull pretty good on the door frame. He was bleeding, but the wall had shown signs of cracking. "I've almost got it, Milo!" he shouted as he again reseated himself and attempted to start the engine. "Dexter, stop! You're going to kill yourself!" Milo yelled as he pulled alongside the bulldozer, but Dexter had clearly made up his mind. With several cranks, the motor finally sprung back to life and began pouring more black smoke into the sky above. Dexter again made his way back away from the wall to get enough distance to gather speed, and gave Milo a huge smile. He grasped the throttle lever and plunged it as far as it would go, and hung on for dear life as the tractor made one final spectacular crash into the wall. The sound of the concrete crumbling came first, and then the dozer went right through the wall and into the ocean on the other side. Dexter flew out of his seat and onto the ground with his head just barely above water as his friends came rushing to his side. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God," repeated Alice as she knelt and helped Milo pull him back to the dry ground. "Are you alive?" asked Milo as he tried to wipe the blood away from Dexter's eyes. Dexter sat back up and looked down at his blood-stained clothes, and then to the wound on his arm. He groggily smiled at Milo and looked back at the hole in the wall leading out into the water. "Milo, if you don't get that damn boat into the water, I'm going to get right up and personally kick your ass." "Why did you do that? We could have taken turns taking passes at it." Dexter stood and looked at his wounds again. "Well, Milo, I don't think you've had any scars as bad as all these, so I guess that means I win the game. Plus, I was shot." "What?" asked Milo, confused. "My wounds. They're obviously the most gnarly and well-deserved scars that either of us will ever have." Dexter smiled. Milo burst into laughter and hugged X before returning to the truck and turning it around. Carefully, he backed the trailer into the water until the boat was ready to be released. They helped Alice into the boat, and then Milo gave Dexter a hand at climbing in as well. Milo then unlatched the boat from the trailer. "Do you still remember how to sail, Milo?" asked Dexter as Alice wiped the blood from his arm. "Yeah, right, you know I don't." "How are we going to sail this thing, then?" asked Dexter. "I used to go sailing sometimes," said Alice, "with my father. But it was on the lakes, not like this." "Well, lead the way, Alice," said Milo and Dexter, nearly at the same time. She smiled and took her spot. "I don't have any idea which way to go. How will we know?" she asked. "We'll just have to follow the stars," said Milo as he came up to stand beside her. "It really doesn't matter at this point, Alice. Anywhere would be better than staying here," said Dexter as he eased into a sitting position and examined the food and supplies. With a slight reluctance, Milo let loose the sail and allowed the wind to take them. Slowly but surely they pulled away from the walls of the city and left their home behind. The further they got away, the more peaceful it looked. Like an island completely uninhabited and leaving behind only the memory of what it once was. Crowhaven stood in the ocean like a pillar darting from the sea floor. Everything they had ever experienced there had been built on a lie, and yet it was the only place that they had ever known. Once, when they were children, their parents would tell them of how the city had been built to be a better solitude from the harshness of the rest of the world. But now, all they could dream about was how wonderful the rest of the world must be, compared to the destitution of Crowhaven. "You know what, Milo? I think we just might make it," said Dexter as Alice took Milo's hand in hers. After a while, looking back at the city made it seem smaller and smaller. The open water was like a glowing highway that led to their freedom, and the chains they had all lived with since the days they were born began to gracefully fall away. "Do you suppose the rest of the world even remembers that we were all out here? Do you think they even cared?" asked Alice. "I don't know. I'm not sure," said Milo. "Nah," said Dexter. "I reckon if they still gave a thought about us, they would have been trying to overrule it somehow. They probably just thought it better to leave us out here to destroy ourselves. Well, we did. We didn't. The families and people that came here to make better lives for their families didn't do this. Power did this. Power and greed and leadership," Dexter said resolutely. "It's almost funny in a sort of way," said Milo. "The world will never know what the three of us did. They might never know that the war was coming. They won't know what happened here or what was lost in the city. They won't grieve for the people that lived there, and they won't care about the people that died there. They risked utter destruction on the chance that destruction would take care of itself, and they will never even know about any of it." "Good," said Dexter. "Let the memories of that place go away and be forgotten. That's all any of it deserves. The people are what should be remembered, but forget the rest of it. Maybe then life will start to feel like it makes sense again." Milo stared out across the sea until the very moment that he couldn't see the city behind him at all. It simply vanished beneath the horizon and was gone. "Yeah, maybe it will." And he smiled. The end.